Hello, this is the Cool Kid, and this will be my rules video on the Heroica The Dungeon custom game that I did a video on the more cosmetic and aesthetic part of earlier, so you can watch that if you want. And if you've already watched that, this is the video explaining how the game is played and what rules I've changed from the original Heroica, and there are quite a few. I'll be going through the rules phase by phase. The first phase shall be the hero phase, and I'll give you some specific examples of how that will work. But anyway, on the hero's turn, they roll the classic Lego Heroica die, and they may move that many spaces, and just each space is a space, as usual with Heroica, no diagonal movement and all that basic stuff. 2 is 2 spaces, 3 is 3 spaces, shield is 4 spaces. This is actually 2 spaces. It just always sucks in Heroica when you roll a 1, so I'd rather average it out a bit more, so that's 2 spaces, and then the skull's 2 spaces, swords are 3 spaces, and the shield is 4 spaces if you use it to move, or you can use it to recharge at the end of your turn if you have not moved, nor fought anything or anyone. You may use it to recharge 1 use of your abilities, which are represented by these little cones over here on the hero packs, or 3 uses of a shooting ability, which is held by the wizard and the ranger, and they're identical, so I'll explain the abilities in a bit. And that's really just the movement for heroes. If there's ever a conflict between when 2 heroes want to do something, like anything at all in the game, or really just, yeah, when they want to go, or when they, or I don't know, just really anything, when they want events to happen, then you assign each hero a color on this 50-50 die, you roll it, and then that hero gets to do whatever they want. We'll pick the order, rather. In the case of, more than 2 people involved in this dispute, then you would assign each person 2 colors on the 6-color die. Now, before the hero phase, I'm kind of going back on this a little bit because I did it in the wrong order, but anyway. Before the heroes do anything, you have the beginning of round phase, when you do certain things. On the first round, you will place 4 normal goblins, and from then on, every other round, you will alternate placing goblin guardians and goblins. So the first round, you will randomly place 4 goblins. The second round, you don't do anything. The start of the third round, you place 2 goblin guardians. 4th round, don't do anything. 5th round, you place 4 regular goblins, and so on and so forth for the rest of the game until an event. And to place goblins, you simply take this die, and for each goblin you roll it, and then you place the goblin on the corresponding monster spawner. So there's 1 here, there's 1 here, there's 1 there, 1 over here behind this door, 1 there, and 1 there. Each of them have a different colored peg above them to signify their uniqueness. And multiple monsters can spawn at the same door, and you treat it as if they had been placed on top of the other one and then moved 1 space. So use the rules for monster targeting, which I'll explain later. And I think that's all really for the beginning phase. Oh, except for if a hero dies by various reasons, you randomly roll for where they're going to come back. And you do this also at the start of the game, when you just have to determine where heroes are starting. So you roll this die, re-rolling results of yellow or green, and that will determine where you place the player, because player spawns are at these little handcuffs. So this room is orange, this room is white, this room is red, and that room is blue, and that's determined by looking at what doors are adjacent to them. And in the case of those 2 rooms back there, they both have, well, this one room has 2 doors adjacent to it, but the other room only has the 1, so you just have to split it up that way. And so that's the rule for kind of how you determine where players will either spawn or come back after they're dead, which makes perfect sense. And I think that's all for the start of the round. Now, back to the player phase. At the end of it, certain things will happen. And at the end of the player phase, if a player is adjacent to a lever, then we pull the lever, and to do that, if the lever is unrevealed, you just reveal it by boop. And so that would reveal orange. And that player may choose whether or not they want to close the orange door or open it if it's closed already after they've pulled that lever. And any other hero, this doesn't, another hero may move into a space adjacent to a lever, they may also do that and decide whether they want to open or close it. And I showed how you open and close the doors, but if a door is closed, no one may move through it. It blocks line of sight through it, so it's basically just as if there was a wall there now. And you also randomly change the position of one door whenever Goblin Guardians spawn, and that's determined by rolling the die and changing the position of a door. And if ever there's a scenario in which, say, this white door and yellow door are closed, which would block off this entire section, if ever a section is blocked off, and let me just find where the, nope, I should have figured this out beforehand. There we are. There's the yellow lever, and that means that this must be the white one. So say those two are pulled, and those two doors, these two are closed. A hero at a lever, and again, just imagine those are closed, may, if the section is closed off, they may take this and swap it with one of the doors that is blocking the section. So now this lever corresponds to the yellow door, and they may then use it to open the yellow door, just making it so that someone can't get stuck. And if for some odd reason rolling that random door closing when Goblin Guardians spawn, you would block off a section and there are no levers showing that are on either of any of the doors that block off that section, then you would re-roll that dice. And just a couple other things for the player phase. So, I talked about rolling a shield to regenerate stuff, so you can't move and you can't fight. If you also have not moved and have not fought on your turn, you may regenerate a hit point for free. And you can't have moved, you can't have fought, and also you can't have used any abilities except the rogue's ability. You can use the rogue's ability. And now I think I'll probably cover the abilities, well, some of them that are relevant. So let's start with the shooting ability. Shooting ability is at the end of the hero phase. You may, if you're not fighting, if you're not engaged, at the end of the hero phase, you may choose a target within line of sight, so basically you have to be able to see them, and you may roll the Heroica die, and depending on what you roll, you may do things. So if you roll a skull on the Heroica die, nothing happens, you expend a charge of your shooting ability, and that's all. If you roll a shield, you expend a charge of the shooting ability, and the defender, the person you're shooting at, takes a damage. If you roll a sword, or a sword and skull, you re-roll the Heroica dice, and on the result of a skull, the charge is still wasted, and on the result of anything but a skull, the defender takes a damage. So you spend a charge to do any of these things. So, for example, like say you spend a charge, you roll a dice, you roll a sword and skull, then you'd roll the dice again, and then if you roll, say, a sword, then that person would take damage. But if you roll a skull on that second roll, they wouldn't take any damage. So kind of a shield is an auto damage, sword or sword and skull is a potential damage, and a skull in any scenario is just no damage. The only other couple abilities that are relevant are the Sage's ability, where you may spend one of those charges, and if you have not fought on this turn, these little light green ones, you may spend a charge, and if you haven't fought on this turn, you can pick up a free item anywhere within line of sight. So if, say, you're like standing right here in this space, you can see that potion, you can just pick it up, and that's yours now. And you spend a charge. So that's kind of similar to the Sage's ability in the actual game. So you can just pick up stuff for free. there is the rogue's ability, and he's pretty fun. I am actually quite proud of this ability. You may spend one of his charges, and for this hero, the hero phase, and then until the end of his next movement phase, not movement phase, but until the end of his next turn, movement-wise, basically everyone treats him as if he's not there. So monsters don't see him, he's not there, and he can move past people. So he can move adjacent to people, and he's not fighting them. He's just not there. Heroes still know that he's there as players, but they can't engage him, so you can kind of just sneak past people. And that's what the ability is meant to do. I think that's really that for the rogue's ability, so you can kind of, use him to sneak around and do what a rogue would make sense to do. So again, for the movement of this phase, of this turn, and then for the fighting on this turn, and then for the whole next turn, moving, no one can target him. However, after he is moved, then if he's adjacent to someone, then he's fighting them, because he's all of a sudden not sneaking anymore. And I think that is the rogue's ability. The one other thing at the end of the hero phase, they work in very similar ways to levers, are these crates and these barrels. Either way, if you end adjacent to them, you may choose to open them and just basically take it out. And there's either a skeleton and a special weapon in one, and I think a luck potion in the other. And yeah, and same thing with the barrels. The barrel, there are multicolored dots, so if you draw a red dot from one of them, then you get that health potion. If it's a silver dot, you get the special weapon. Yeah. Oh, and if there's a skeleton in one of these crates, you place that skeleton. If you're in one of these spaces, you place him adjacent to the hero, fighting them, and you fight them because he's the skeleton popping out of the whatever that is. And think items are picked up normally during the hero phase, like in normal Heroica if you move over them. And I think that's it for the hero phase. And I've just realized these are gonna be a 2-part video. I've also realized I've forgotten the thing. A couple more things that I just forgot. The other thing is gold. There's some gold scattered throughout the map, as well as potions. Gold can be spent for 2 gold. You may buy any potion from the store, and those potions are just for reference. The number of potions is considered to be unlimited, so you can have any number of them. So 2 gold to buy a potion, and you can use speed, health, and defense potions on your turn only. Strength and luck can be used, luck can be used on your turn as well as during the monster turn, and strength can be used, not monster turn, fighting, and strength can be used during the fighting phase. I should probably explain the health charges, healing charges I think I call them, and they can be spent if you either haven't moved and haven't fought, haven't moved and have fought, or have fought and haven't moved. So basically you can either have fought or have moved, but not both. And you may spend those, and at the end of the turn, the very end of the whole round, you expend one of those charges and you get 2 health back. And you can also use them in reaction to taking damage. So if you take damage that would reduce you to dead, you may spend a healing charge, and instead of dying, you just drop to 1 hit point. And the change to strength potion will be covered later. But otherwise the potions function the same. Couple more things. Lava pit. If you're adjacent, or if you're on one of these 2 spaces, you may spend 2 spaces of movement If you don't have 2 spaces, you can't attempt it. To attempt to jump the lava pit, and to do that, you roll like a Heroica die. If you roll a sword, you move to the. If you roll a sword or a shield, you may place your figure from one end of the lava pit to the other. If you roll a sword and a skull, you don't get to move, and you just stay there. So, you didn't get across, but you also didn't die. And if you roll a skull, you fall into lava, and all of your items are gone, and the player dies. So, I've actually seen it used a lot of times when a player wants to die because they want to respawn at a place closer to, like, the exit. And also, I forgot to mention the secret passage, which is up there. Secret passage it functions basically as other doors, except for it starts closed. So again, you've seen how to open it. You just, wrong thing. There you go. You just open it, and you can spend 2 spaces of movement to move from outside of it into it, or from into it to outside of it. And you can just move when going out this way. Either these 2 spaces connect to the secret passage, and from here, this space and that space connects to the secret passage. And this barrel does in fact change location, so it is normally you can access it to open it from there or there, but once it's moved, you can only get to it from that one space. So it does actually change positions. And that is all for the player phase. Oh, never mind. One more thing. If a player has a golden key, which is acquired from the Goblin General, they may leave via the exit. First player to leave wins. But and you do that just by being in this space adjacent to the door, and then spending 1 space of movement to leave the door. The stairs that go up to the door, you can move from any of these spaces onto the stairs. You can't move from here to here. And also, once you're on this space, you don't fight with people down here if you're adjacent to them. Because even though if you're like right here and there, even though those 2 spaces are adjacent, you don't actually fight. But you can shoot upstairs because they're still visible, but you don't actually fight. Anyway, that is all.